Hey everybody, Nightmare Kelp Street back, and today we're going to be covering this week's Friday wrap-up. Apologies for missing last week, but I made a post about it, and if there's ever not enough stuff out or I haven't heard a full album that week, I'm probably just going to make a short post or maybe just a short video if I can get to it, kind of covering what's going on, any singles or albums I've been following. This week I'm going to be including 4 albums and a couple, about 6 or 7 singles. Kind of wrap up about, not everything came out this current Friday, September 20th, but all these albums did, and a few singles kind of straggling within the past week, just kind of catch you up to date on what's been going on. I'll kind of be using this background, as you can see here, to fill up albums and kind of give myself a bit of a baseline of some artists I'll be talking about through my talks in these Friday wrap-ups, give a little bit of history lesson on where these artists came from, how long I've been listening to them, things like that, So my favorite album listen of this week was the Voidz, Like All Before You. Beautiful kind of shiny sheen, glossy-eyed cover to this album. I love the cover art. You can see in the background here how the other 2 albums that the Voidz have put out. The Voidz is comprised of 6 members. The main key member we're going to be focusing on today is Julian Casablanca of The Strokes. Very famous kind of 90s, 2000s psychedelic rock and experimental rock pop band. This band, however, for the first album, Tyranny, and the second album, Virtue, definitely more experimental, longer songs, up to 5, sometimes 10 or 11 minutes, but incredible listens. Some of the best experimental rock I've heard in years throughout these 2 albums in the 2010s. But Like All Before You was kind of a disappointing listen. Even my closest friend Cheyenne that kind of talked about, got me into the Voidz and saw the Virtue album tour live. So it was a little bit of a disappointing listen from Overture this time around with Like All Before You. Still liked the majority of the album. Track 1 and track 10 are both interludes, so we have 8 core tracks here. I've heard Prophecy of the Dragon already. That was an incredible song there. Very vibey type song, close to 5 minutes. It's the 3rd track. But then Square Wave is a bit of a muffly intro. 7 Horses, Spectral Analysis, all okay. Flexorcist, Perseverance 1C 2S, and When Will the Time of These Bastards End, which is an incredible title, are all my favorites on this current listen through, my first listen today. It was okay. Genre, I'd consider it like rock, psychedelia, experimental, electronic, very synth heavy. If you like any of those genres, I'd recommend giving at least a listen, pick out your favorites. Just because I'm such a big Voidz fan, I'll probably end up buying the album at some point because I think it fits really well for having on LP, putting on a background listen, chilling around your house. It's definitely a more vibey type music than it is hone in, pay attention to it. Next, last night around 12 midnight to 1 or 2 a.m., I listened to the new Katy Perry album. I know there's been a lot of stir about this one, about how people calling this her second or first big fall off. I'd say it was weak to me, but it had strength to it. I think the features saved it the most. That's kind of my current takeaway after my first listen. I did a second abbreviated listen with my fiance this morning by showing her the highlights and be this is what I would pull away from it. Everything else is pretty mid. And that takeaway would be, starting from the beginning, the album's called 143. The genre would be pop. And it's Katy Perry. She made I Kissed a Girl. She made Dark Horse with Juicy J. Woman's World was an awful pick for a single. The video was so corny. Felt like the worst of the 2010s pop era in sound and quality and how the production was made. A lot of people have been giving her shit for Dr. Luke being on this album. I know he's worked with Katy Perry, Doja Cat, Kim Petras, used to work with Kesha, and that's kind of why it's been causing a stir recently, as Kesha's been making statements in the public about how much she hates Dr. Luke and how happy she is to be away from him. So, I don't blame Kesha. I do blame Katy Perry a little bit here for kind of making some of the stalest pop I've heard in a good while on some of these tracks. 21 Savage was a weird combo to do with Katy Perry. The second song already had me be oh, okay. Gorgeous with Kim Petras and I'm His, He's Mine with Doechii are 2 of the strongest tracks here. I think they're incredible. I know she played I'm His, He's Mine at the Video Music Awards recently. She played it there, I'm pretty sure. It was a recent award show, whichever one it was. But my other takeaways here I have one more with the feature, Artificial with JID. Katy Perry's part's pretty mid. JID has an incredible verse. I recommend it if you're a rap fan for that alone. But otherwise, the only 2 songs I liked here that were just with her, no features, were Lifetimes and Truth, just because I found the messaging of those songs to be really nice, but the production was still a bit stale, so it's kind of a half and half there. Just confusing listen overall. It's one of the most confusing listens of the year to me, just because it felt like so out of date. Like, I felt like both her and her team didn't really understand that we don't want that 2010 sound anymore. We want a little bit something more. Like, give me that punch like Sabrina Carpenter or Olivia Rodrigo has now, if they're gonna be coming out here like being a big pop act adjacent to bigger acts like this. And they're not as big as her, but it's funny when you see acts that have been around this all making worse music than them. Like, if you listen to Sabrina Carpenter's Short and Sweet versus this, so much more poignant in messaging and just generally good and well produced of an album compared to this. It's so stale and bland, and at least in its beats, and sometimes in its verses and its choruses. Next, I listened to Lil Tecca, Plan A. I would consider this like a rap melodic type listen. I only made it to like the 5th or 6th track last night because it's a bit overly misogynistic for me. There's a lot of points where he's like, I fucking this bitch, I take this bitch, and I'm like, hey, I can't always get down with albums like that. If you watch previous videos on this channel, you know that at a certain point I just tap from the album, especially to talk about hitting women or things like that. I'm like, I'm not gonna stick around for things like this. I'm just gonna act like it didn't happen. The Don Toliver song was pretty good. I like the energy he brought in there when he brought in his chorus. And he's like, no, the bro, and he had like really crumbly voice. That was really funny. But otherwise, I might revisit it at some point, take my highlights. I like the first 2 tracks especially. Future's new album and mixtape Pluto. Listened to that last night while I was playing Alien Isolation. Kind of just get to my listens for the week. I'll consider the album genre to be rap and trap. Future, he has some highlights on. I like him best on features. His peak to me was on the Drake and Future mixtape What a Time to Be Alive, and on that one song with Kendrick Lamar. Even though his verse was a little corny, the song itself is still pretty good. I feel like he's slotted in, where he would. But I would say just like the Katy Perry albums in different ways, the beats are weak. And I feel like Future just really isn't at his peak here for me. I made it also to the 3rd or 4th song and I kind of just tapped. Not because it was too misogynistic or anything like that, surprisingly coming from Future, but just that it wasn't strong enough to really hold my attention. The beats were like so subpar and so minimalist that I was like, oh, not really giving us much to eat off here, are you? My last kind of setups for today, and we'll cover the last 2 albums I down here and why I have them out. Are my favorite singles this past week. No Comma by Slayer was my first top single this week. A really energetic, fun, bouncy, good party dance song. Good floor your car to it, to drive fast type song. Hyperpop, electronic, electropop, I would say this genre. Then Houston by Gene Dawson. Gene Dawson I first started paying attention to on Kilo Kish's album on American Girl. He featured on that album, and I'm getting really big into him. I love his topics of religion and growing up in a religious household and family, and how he conflicts with that. My favorite song by him is Nice One, Mean One. It's like something like that, where he's like talking about like good and bad version of himself. Hold on, give me 1 second. I'll find it here for us. Positive One, Negative One on the album Chaos Now. Highly recommend this album if you have time for it. It's only like 30 minutes or so, so it's a pretty short listen. Came out in 2022. I would consider him like punk rock rap, electro, like such a fusion of sounds. Is really interesting. He's really minimalist in some points in his albums too. Next single though for this past week on Friday wrap up today would be these upcoming singles I'm gonna talk about didn't come out today, like September 20th, but they came out within the past week. They're All Around Us by Poppy. Wearing Poppy shirt. I got the last album over here, Flux, that she dropped. Actually, this isn't the last album she dropped. I'm like 1 album behind. Let's see. The last album that Poppy dropped was one that didn't really hit with fans as much as expected. At least I had expected. Zig. It came out in 2023. And didn't really hit with me either. I was like, it's like 11 songs, Church Outfit, Ones and O's, the title track Zig, are really the only ones I remember, so I need to revisit it, but I'll eventually probably get that album, the newest album, to kind of match out the whole discography of hers. I've seen her. She's the artist I've seen the most live out of any artist. I've seen her live 3 or 4 times at this point now. I think 4. She comes to Kansas and Missouri pretty frequently, so it's easy to see her out in the Midwest, which is nice. And I like seeing her progression over the years, from pop to rock to screamo. Where she's at now is a very heavy song. This newest one is very screamo rock. Dancing in the Flames by The Weeknd is the next single. I have After Hours down here. I just found it in the past day or two on LP for pretty cheap, like $20 on used sale. Weeknd is just pop, pop R&B rap. Newest album is leading up to the final of the 3-album trilogy. So I'm very excited about that, to kind of go through and see what all 3 of the albums feel like going together, like his previous trilogy did, with House of Balloons and all that. Next single would be In the Party with Dev Lemons. I consider indie pop and alt pop, bit of electronic in some of the things she does. Listen to Cyberpunk Fairy if you want something on the little weirder side. I know mainly knew Dev Lemons for a while from YouTube, so finding her over from YouTube, and she makes really serious, like non-jokey music, she has a side band called Queef Jerky that does like jokey music and stuff like that, and the title implies, let you know what you're in for when you start listening to the band. And the last single for this week is One of the Guys by Fairy Baby, spelled F-A-E-R-Y-B-A-B-Y-Y. Found her just through kind of chilling around on YouTube, listening to randomized shuffles and stuff like that. And I would consider this genre like kind of mystical pop, indie pop, right around there. Pretty incredible artist to kind of stumble across, because she makes really soothing music, very like kind of old school style tinge, where it like sounds like it's older than it actually is. And I really like that aesthetic sometimes. I really like that vibe. So, that covers all the albums over here. Just a refresher if you want to ask about what's in the background. Virtue by the Voidz, Tyranny by the Voidz, Flux by Poppy, After Hours by The Weeknd. And if you like this video, remember to like, comment, subscribe. I don't think I said that at the top of the video, but thanks for sticking around, and thanks for holding up with me when I miss a week of upload or something. But I want to get these weekly or bi-weekly to have regular content for y'all, even if I don't do shorts, which I know I slacked on the past week or two, but life comes at you and you get busy. Had some recent work news that stumbled across me, but it's okay, it happens. So I'll be back with you for more shorts or more album reviews or something within the next week or two. Just keep a watch out. If any surprise albums drop, I'll definitely be on top of that. If there's anything that you want me to cover, new or old, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this video or what you're just currently listening to, and I'll get to it eventually if you want me to cover it. I love you, kelpies. Bye.